Okay, so over the past 15 years, the business plan has served as a blueprint for Oregon's economy. Economic growth creates jobs and opportunity for Oregon families in every part of our state. Growth provides the tax revenues to fund public education and supports those among us who are most in need. In 2010, the Oregon Business Plan established goals for job growth, for personal income, and for poverty reduction. Since then, we've made a lot of progress towards these goals, and we've done so together. Job growth has consistently outpaced our goal of 25,000 per year. The most recently increased was 34,900 jobs here in Oregon. Per capita income rose to over 45,000 in 2016 and is catching up to the US average. The share of households living in poverty fell 4 percentage points in 5 years. Oregon's poverty rate is now below the US average. Oregon is one of the fastest growing economies in the US, and Forbes magazine recently named Portland the best city for careers in the United States. Certainly, we're enjoying the benefits of an economic expansion, but our story is deeper than that. Our success has come because of the desirable qualities of the place we call home: the mountains, the coast, food, beer, wine, and I've got to say the cheese, of course. Oregon is a place that people want to be. Oregonians are innovative, creative, and entrepreneurial, and these qualities attract others with similar values. We should all be proud of the work we've done together. But we can't be satisfied until we ensure that every single Oregonian is sharing in our prosperity. And unfortunately, that's not the case today. Rural communities have started to share in some of the gains of this economic expansion, but they're not experiencing the same growth as urban communities in our state. Communities of color and other historically disadvantaged groups are still facing significantly higher rates of unemployment and poverty. The chronically unemployed or underemployed, which increasingly includes a growing number of middle-aged men, is a new phenomenon. And this is different than what we've seen in past economic expansions. If we aren't careful, these problems will accelerate. As we'll learn this afternoon, the forces of technology offer many opportunities, but they also create the significant possibility of workplace disruption. If we don't quickly redesign our education and training for citizens at all ages, and if we don't rethink our social safety net to help Oregonians bounce back, then far too many will be left behind in the next wave of technological change. And those communities that are currently being left behind stand in the greatest risk in the future. Of course, the key to preparation for this future is education. Education must be transformed to help all learners at all ages gain academic and technical skills, and in particular, the critical skills that are uniquely human. These are the skills that no robot can replace: creativity, empathy, problem solving, teamwork, responsibility, and leadership. The thing is, to do this important work, we must invest our time and resources. And we must have the confidence that those resources won't disappear during the next dip in the economic cycle. Which brings me to the critical challenge that we must address for Oregon to be future ready. No challenge to our future, and for that matter to our present, looms as large as Oregon's fiscal crisis, threatening our state's ability to pay for the things that we all say we want for our citizens. At the 2015 Leadership Summit, Senate President Courtney emphasized the urgency for us to work together on this issue so that we can avoid the antietam of Oregon politics. We were unable to come together with this warning in mind, and we ended up collectively spending tens of millions of dollars and widening divisions in a ballot fight over a large tax increase. A blunt and unbalanced approach indeed. As a result, the build-up to last year's summit was tense and uncertain. In the wake of that divisive year, last year we created an unconventional agenda for the summit, focusing entirely on the state's structural budget crisis. We did this because nothing was more important to meet our collective vision for our state. At that summit, Representative Mike McLean turned to the audience and asked you if you thought it was a crisis. Your overwhelming response at that summit was yes. The business plan proposed a framework that included 3 key areas. Grow the economy. It's the best way to lift up families and to pay for critical public services. Slow the growth of unsustainable costs in government, including those associated with employee benefits. Adjust business taxes to improve stability and sufficiency of revenues. We called to increase business taxes specifically for needed education and healthcare investments. Following last year's summit, we've had some success. First, on the economy, the first element of the 2017 business plan, we're seeing good progress. As the numbers I told you earlier suggest, Oregon continues to grow, and our state elected leaders helped position us for further growth. The long-awaited transportation package came to pass. Years of dedicated work by Democrats and Republicans led to the $5 billion investment in transportation, roads, bridges, and public transit. Oregon made significant investments in research and development. These investments include public and private support for the Oregon Manufacturing Innovation Center, OSU's schools of forestry and agriculture, the Knight campus for accelerating scientific impact at U of O, and more. And in what could have been another partisan battle over business regulations, Democrats and Republicans came together and passed a pay equity bill unanimously, helping ensure that Oregonians get equal pay for equal work regardless of gender. Unfortunately, on the second and third elements of the framework, specifically on cost containment and changes to the tax code, less progress was made. As a result of our inability to address our structural budget deficit, we're now faced with an even greater problem. Last year, we showed you some charts highlighting the extent of Oregon's imbalance between revenues and expenditures. The legislature managed to balance the current budget with temporary assessments on hospitals and insurance premiums, and did enact some cost containment provisions. But the trajectory of the primary cost drivers remains unchanged, and our tax system still is as unstable as it was 1 year ago. Balancing the budget for the biennium is challenging and requires hard, smart work. But respectfully, we all know that balancing the budget is not the same as solving the state's long-term structural budget crisis. To put this in perspective, consider this. The legislature increased the budget for K through 12 schools by $800 million in the current budget. That's an 11% increase. Yet many districts reported the need to lay off teachers. This is largely because the growing cost of PERS absorb much of the growing revenue. This problem isn't going away, and there's a real and significant cost of delay. When I spoke to you last year on this stage, PERS cost schools and state government employers $2 billion per biennium. This current biennium, it's $2.9 billion. Next biennium, it will be $4.1 billion. And it doesn't stop there. By 2030, PERS will cost public employers $10 billion per biennium until it begins to taper off after that. If we don't slow the growth of costs that our schools and other public entities are facing, then we'll have to come up with billions of new dollars just to keep doing the same things we are doing today. And this is not sustainable. We know we must slow the growth in this massive expense. But we also know that commitments must be honored and that slowing the growth is only part of the solution. The chart I showed earlier assumed stable revenue growth. Let me give a shout out to Senator Mark Hass, who produced this slide. He knows, as we all know, that our revenue system is anything but stable. We left last year's summit with what I interpreted as an appreciation for the size and urgency of this problem, and a shared willingness to work together to address the state's budget crisis. Candidly, I was optimistic, probably a bit naive. However, with all due respect for the tremendous challenge, we failed, and that includes me. As chair of the Oregon Business Plan, I had the opportunity to engage in the legislative process in ways that I'd never experienced before. I was invited by Senator Hass to testify at the joint House-Senate Revenue Committee, where I presented the business plan's proposal to raise business taxes by $500 million and curb the growth in spending by an equal amount. And while we didn't necessarily agree on everything, I enjoyed the discussion with the committee and learned a lot from Senator Hass, who's committed as much time and thought to Oregon's revenue issue as anyone. I had the opportunity to meet with legislators from both parties and both chambers, including legislative leaders. I was humbled and inspired by their tireless service to the state and developed an even greater appreciation for the difficult challenges they face. I, along with other business leaders, spent many hours with the leaders of the public employee unions. And guess what? I really enjoyed the time we spent together and came away with an even greater appreciation for the hard work of the public employees in our state. And I was involved in countless conversations with business leaders from many different industries and areas of the state. This gave me a better understanding of the broader implication of changes to our tax system and how that could affect their businesses as well as the prospects for job growth. And throughout this process, and in my capacity as chair of the business plan, I received no shortage of feedback. Tackle taxes first, tackle spending first, address them at the same time. Where's your plan? Why are you proposing a plan? Why are you involved at all? It's not the right time for your proposals. Your proposals are coming too late. Business should be leading. Leave that to the legislature. Conflicting feedback for sure, but reflective of the complexity of this issue and probably fair. So, what did I learn from all this over the last year? During the last year, it was confirmed for me that we all want to do right by Oregonians for the long term. We share a remarkably similar vision for the future of Oregon. A place with a strong and growing economy and broad and inclusive middle class. A place where everyone has access to a high-quality education, where people are healthy. Healthcare is affordable and accessible, and we support the most vulnerable among us, where our communities are safe and where everyone can enjoy the benefits of a beautiful natural environment. Certainly, we don't agree about the way to get there, but that's only natural, as we all see the problem from different perspectives, and each have different things to gain or lose in this process. Sure, there were things that the business plan and individual business leaders, and I as the chair of the business plan, could have done better or differently over the past year. And that goes for others as well. But we can't play a blame game. We have to figure out how to move forward together. And I, for one, believe that the differences in perspective that would divide us are the very same that will allow us to come to the right solution. So we must come together to develop a sensible solution immediately. We've tried everything to address this crisis over the past 2 years. Ballot measures, public hearings, analysis, and proposals to address one or the other side of the issue. We battled it out in advertising and countless editorials. And certainly there's no shortage of plans. We have great plans in the playbook in front of you. And there are many other great plans as well for how we address this as a state. The thing is, we've tried everything. In my opinion, though, everything except the one thing that will work, and that's sitting together at the same table in good faith to solve this problem. I agree. Thank you. The practical lesson from last year is that we must overcome natural divisions and begin working on sensible solutions now with enough time to tackle this difficult issue. It's not going to be easy. We must begin to work together in good faith to identify the best ideas, no matter where they come from. So what does this look like? It looks like all the right people are at the table. Republicans and Democrats, business and public employee unions, public employers, and advocacy groups. Everyone at that table needs to come with their best ideas and an open mind, with an understanding that a solution will require compromise and shared sacrifice. And we must make progress beginning immediately toward a comprehensive, widely supported plan before the 2019 legislative session. I think the last point must be emphasized. This is a now problem, not a tomorrow problem. If we don't start now, then quite frankly, we won't get a solution in the 2019 session. It's simply not realistic to assume that we can ask our legislature to start the work after a 2018 November election and get to a solution during the 2019 session. And if we don't address this crisis in 2019, we're pushing the issue down to 2021. Businesses, both political parties, labor, and public employers must be held accountable to participate in this type of work together. The rest of this morning, we will be hearing about perspectives from other leaders about how to proceed. Local elected officials, business and community partners, legislators, and our governor. And you will have an opportunity to offer your advice as well. With the urgency of Oregon's fiscal crisis and what's at stake, I'd like to propose a goal for this morning. By the end of the morning, it should be clear what our immediate next step will be to be taken together in early 2018. Let's see if we can get there. Let's set the table and let's get to work. Thank you.